And welcome to another edition of Defo on 5. Jeff DeForest along with one Mike Lubie Lubitz. A very ecstatic Mike Lubie Lubitz because, like you 5 Reasons sports fans, he is obsessed, absolutely obsessed with the Miami Heat. Lubie, you have to be a happy man. It looks like you're finally going to get your wish. The Heat are creeping into a position so they don't have to play in the dreaded play-in game, moving into the sixth position, percentage points behind the Brooklyn Nets. And guess what, Mike Lubie Lubitz? You get the Brooklyn Nets served up on a silver platter coming into town on Saturday night. So you go head to head with the Heat looking like they were playing some pretty sharp basketball against a New York Knicks team that obviously has had an excellent season, has had a monster turnaround by Julius Randle, who's been fantastic. It was funny, too, because the Knicks fans and the New York press wanted to run Randle out of town after last year. Guy had one down season, and that was it. They were done. It was like Derek Jeter hitting 260, and they said, cut the guy if he had done it in his fourth year in the league. Randall has responded and rebounded. Thibodeau, who was kind of on thin ice a little bit, the message might have been wearing thin. That rhetoric was starting to surface in New York. Well, geez, I don't know about old Tommy Boy. And the Knicks had a turnaround season. You would think the Knicks were in first place by 12 games, the way they're talking about the New York Knicks organization. And yet we here in South Florida are just absolutely beside ourselves about the Miami Heat, thinking, well, we don't really have a championship team. Tale of two cities, and last night it was all about Miami. And you have to be a happy man because the more you think about it, the less you really want to be in that seventh or eighth position in the NBA, whether it's the Eastern or the Western Conference.
You just want to play extra games. I mean, look, if you're in the seventh seed and you win the one game, you move
You're
on.
in, yeah.
So that's fine. But then now you're playing a Celtics or a Bucks. And the Sixers have actually played better than the Celtics of late, but the Celtics are a much deeper, much more talent spread team, whereas the Sixers is really Embiid, Harden, and Maxi's a good young player, but he's not an every night young player, and their bench isn't anything. So of those three teams, you'd rather play the Sixers. And look, obviously, and the Knicks they're still in a sort of arm's length of the Knicks. And that's where you want to get to is the Cavs, because you can beat the Cavs. I would actually pick them to beat the Cavs. Those top three teams, I wouldn't see that happening.
Reason to be euphoric, though, if you're a Heat fan. Jimmy Butler, another monster game. Jimmy Butler. I don't know how he does it, right? Okay. It's not like he has the pure kind of jump shot. Like when Kawhi Leonard goes up for a jumper from 17, you're thinking that ball's going in, even though it's sort of a line drive that he takes. You see DeMar DeRozan with the Chicago Bulls, and prior to that with the San Antonio Spurs, Toronto Raptors. When he shoots, you're thinking, wow, this guy's a legitimate jump shooter. And he does all the other things that Jimmy Butler does in terms of going to the basket and those twisting 360 spin moves and all of the different things that he does around the hoop. But Butler really manufactures points, does he not? That's been his MO, and maybe that's one of the reasons that people don't see him as a superstar, because he doesn't have what appears to be just that raw, intrinsic, inherent jump shooting talent that you would think you would need to be a successful scorer from the perimeter in the NBA, and yet he comes up with 35 last night and 9 assists.
Yes,
which was a big factor in the ball game. So the Heat prevail 127-120 over the Knicks. Percentage points behind the Brooklyn Nets, who come to town on Saturday night. And you find yourself in a much more favorable position. Spoelstra never cracks. I mean, that's one thing you have to like about this guy, huh? Doesn't matter. You wouldn't know. Honestly, I guess you would know if he was in last place with a team that was 20 games under 500. But it doesn't seem like he ever wavers. All season long, he's kind of been a consistent metronomic presence there with the Miami Heat. It's interesting, too, because I was like a lot of people. I figured, oh, wow, handpicked protege by Pat Riley, a Pat Riley clone of sorts. He's got the greasy hair, the good look on the sidelines. When he grins at a referee with that Cheshire cat smile after a bad call, you have to figure that he's actually getting a little dose of the officials' respect and might get the next call or two after reacting like that. Going to be widely respected by the other coaches in the business. But I didn't know that he was going to be this. I'm not sure that anybody really saw this coming, where Eric Spoelstra becomes one of the best coaches in the NBA, period, including a lot of old guys who seem to be losing a little bit of velocity on their fastball. Have you seen Greg Popovich popping off lately? You don't hear too much from old Pop now that his team is absolutely horrendous. It doesn't seem to be, I don't know, do they have some kind of plan there that I'm not aware of? Because it looks to me like that Popovich, would go the Ron Rothstein route One of the great quotes ever from Ron Rothstein was I asked him about his tenure with the Miami Heat. And of course, what did he do? 2.5 seasons before they replaced him with Kevin Lockery, who was a good friend of the guys that were running the show at the time, Billy Cunningham and Lou Chaffel. Shifty Chaffel, as he was known. Still weird, too, to think that Ron Rothstein had a payphone in his office if you wanted to make a telephone call. Chaffel was that cheap, and they made off with a ton of cash. That is one of the great sports swindles of all time. Also, is it not? Billy Cunningham and Lou Chaffel making off with almost all of the profits from the sale of the Miami Heat when it finally became in the full hands of Mickey Arison, the son of Ted Arison, who was one of the original founders. And I think it was Ted's money that kind of got this thing here. Got it rolling. Did Zev Buffman have that kind of cash, $50 million to put up for a basketball team? He was the face of the franchise when they were an expansion team. But come a long way since 1988 when they lost their first 17 games, and we were all wondering where the basketball went when it went into the low post with Ronnie Cycli, and offered a lot of excitement, including 3 championships, a couple of years with LeBron James teaming with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh on the team. And now with a team that you don't really think, and I continue to believe that the Heat are far from championship material, but championship caliber last night in a game that they had to have. And after waffling back and forth, that's kind of the summation of the season, where as you start to think, okay, this team's ready to make a run. And maybe it's a premature evaluation on my part to assume that they're just going to knock off the Nets and move into 6th place.
Yeah, I don't assume anything with this team.
Yeah, they've kind of been the example basketball-wise of the myth of the Sisyphus, where they're pushing the rock up the hill, up the hill, up the hill, and then all of a sudden, just as it looks like they're about to get over the peak, boom, there it goes, rolling downwards, and a rolling stone gathers plenty of moss on its way to the bottom, that's for sure. I want to amend that particular phrase because, it does seem like they pick up a lot of green fungus on their way back down after losing games in Chicago and Orlando, and just when you think the time is right to jump on the bandwagon, it turns out to be one of those railroads in Ohio. Just crash. And I don't know what this rash is on my baby's leg, but I think it might come from some of that toxic waste.
Oh, geez.
Horrible situation there. I went to the Miami Open yesterday, and that was fun. It is true. It's not the same as going to the site when it was at Key Biscayne. That there was a certain kind of charm and just tropical feel to the whole Key Biscayne thing that you do not get at Hard Rock Stadium. You really do have to give credit. I know a lot of people, and we've been among them. Take a look at some of the bozoic moves that Stephen Ross has made through a PR standpoint, and maybe some of the absolutely ridiculously dumb advice that he's gotten from the various people that he's surrounded himself with. Is Ross just surrounded by yes men? What do you think? Yes
I know
men?
Perk made a face yesterday because Perk came on in your stead for a little bit with Mayo.
Yeah.
Lunchbox. And I said, we were talking about Ross, and he's like, yeah, I actually like Ross because they talked about the Miami Open and him saving the Miami Open. And he actually is what you want an owner. He stays out of the way, and he opens up the pocketbook and the checkbook. And we're like, yeah, that's true. But I said, my problem with him is he's too loyal. And you and I have talked about this over the years. He always keeps guys around a little too long, whether it's Philbin or it's Tannenbaum and Greer. Like, he just has this weird loyalty thing that I don't think he has when it comes to business, because you don't become a billionaire at being a sweetheart. We know to become a billionaire,
you're crushing people.
So, like, that's my thing. And Perk made a face like, he didn't actually comment on it. So I don't know what that means. I feel
he's a guy that's got the tuxedo on. He's got the tuxedo shoes, and he's getting ready to receive some humanitarian award from Michigan University of Michigan. And the minute he steps towards the limousine that's going to pick him up, he steps in dog shit. Oh, yeah, he's a guy like a billionaire with dog shit on his shoe. And perhaps, I mean, the flunkies that he had around him were carryovers, a lot of them from, Wayne Huizenga. And unfortunately, while Huizenga probably was calling all of the shots, I think Ross was capitulating to some of the advice that certainly was misguided on many issues that popped up during the course of his time of owning the Miami Dolphins. But you would have to say, I mean, what he's done with Hard Rock Stadium and converting it into an international destination for other sporting events.
Yep.
Is truly remarkable. And they're working on the Grand Prix track there. And I was thinking, all right, you have to give the guy credit for this. The Miami Open would not exist here anymore if he hadn't made the move that he made. Is it ideal? No. But if you're a tennis fan like I am and you had a chance, I mean, yesterday, you know how it was. The practice courts are not as kind of quaint and set up in a situation where you sort of have to peek around a corner and then you push the bushes apart like you did at Key Biscayne and you're going, whoa, that's Joe Willie Sanga. Look at him hitting the ball at 130 miles an hour. They're kind of all together. It kind of also has the look of like a New York public park. The way the courts are just all together out there. But I stroll by the practice courts. I see Carlos Alcaraz warming up against Auger Aliassime, who is a top Canadian player. These two guys are playing points, and they're just having a good time doing it. And you're watching, going, "My God, this is remarkable." Sabalenka, my girl Sabalenka, number 2 in the world, she's on the next court. Medvedev, former number 1, and always knocking on the door of being number 1 in the men's game, is practicing 3 courts over. Tsitsipas is out there. You couldn't ask for more. I mean, it literally was just an incredible all-star lineup of talent that was available. The matches themselves, these were first-round matches. There was one good one on the stadium court where you had Andreescu on the women's side going against Raducanu, who was the young teenage girl who, what was she, 16 when she won the U.S. Open? I don't know if she was quite that young. I remember she went against Leylah Fernandez. And that was, a real sweetheart matchup there. The 2 teenage girls that had bowled their way through a very heavyweight competition and somehow ended up in the final. She tailed off a little bit and actually got knocked out. I mean, that was kind of an interesting matchup to have 2 accomplished women like that battling in the first round of our local tournament. Andreescu ended up winning in 3 sets. Raducanu claimed she had a problem with a wrist injury that compromised her, but she gave it everything she had. The stadium, not the most ideal. They did a good job. They put a stadium within a stadium, Lubie. It was very interesting, the configuration. The temporary stands that they threw inside the stadium on the one side actually would have been much better seats and were better seats than the ones that we had, which was in the stadium where it sort of gradually goes back because it's still configured as a football stadium. And you were pretty much, I mean, you talk about deep nosebleed. It would have been like being at the Houston Astrodome for that Elvin Hayes game against Lou Alcindor when they played squared off in college. And you're thinking, wow, is that the Big E down there? Looks so big to me. Yeah, because they're in row triple Z, section 436. But good event. I recommend people go down there. $40 to park. They whack you, man, and no cash. So bring your credit card. Make sure it's activated. Because you're going to collaborate at the concession stands from a food standpoint. With all due respect to Mike Mayo, the Culinary International impact was not there.
Oh,
It was
no.
the same lousy chicken tenders that you would get if you went to a football game and got, hit with a $22 tab for something like that with a couple of weirdly made and usually cold French fries to go along with it. And then who makes those dips that they give you with, the barbecue and the honey mustard?
Horrible. They're not. They're the worst of all the barbecues and honey mustard.
The absolute worst. Yeah, it's like getting the Chinese mustard in the little packets from a Chinese restaurant, and you're thinking, you guys can't do any better than this. You got to be out of your mind. But real good event. It was a lot of fun. NCAA tournament gets back underway tonight. FAU is going to be in action. They face a little bit of a daunting task, but that's not something they're unfamiliar with in the tournament so far as they take on Tennessee. Tennessee without one of their starting guards, Zakai Ziegler. Do you know this guy?
I know, but that sounds as Jewish as it gets. Is that person not Jewish?
How could Zakai Ziegler? Zakai doesn't sound like a Jewish name, does it? But Ziegler certainly is.
I guess I had a professor's name was Ziegler and he wasn't Jewish, so maybe it's not. Maybe it's just.
They couldn't call him Ziggy? I would imagine most of his teammates call him Ziggy. Yeah. Anyway, he's out, and we'll keep an eye on John L. Davis and see if he can do more of the same, as he was a one-man wrecking crew in a game against Fairleigh Dickinson. This guy really was the main difference in that ball game, and we're naturally rooting for Dusty May, who was it that said that his dream job? I think it was a Tobin Anderson guy said his dream job was Notre Dame, which was a job that was just filled yesterday.
Yeah.
The Notre Dame head basketball coach. And Anderson, wow, did he just take the first opportunity and run from Fairleigh Dickinson?
Yes, he did. Ken told me, our buddy the professor said that Iona is a better job.
I would think so, yeah.
Work. The Metro Atlantic is better than the conference Fairleigh Dickinson's in. But to me, they were both programs that no one knew, no one heard of, and it's going to be hard to do anything real there.
Yeah, I mean, Iona was always a decent program.
Well, back in the day, and they had a history. I guess Iona did have a history from years past.
I still remember Marty Glickman calling those games. Okay, we've got Iona today on the game of the week. We had the high school game of the week, and every now and then they would slip in like a college game, and it would be Iona. Anyway, we wish all the best to Dusty May and FAU tonight against Tennessee. And then tomorrow, of course, and we'll get into this a little bit more tomorrow on the show, the University of Miami against Houston. Houston boasting a fine trio of players, and most people feel that Houston is going to prevail. That's a natural assumption since they were a number one seed. It's interesting that because Purdue got knocked off by Fairleigh Dickinson in that Cinderella-like upset, that FAU has actually had an easier path to the Elite Eight and wherever else they might eventually go. If it is a Final Four appearance, or even if it ends today, they still had a much easier path to get to this point, and with the possibility of moving on further than the University of Miami did, where Miami ended up having to face a number one seed in Houston in its third game. All right, we have to run. It's amazing how quickly this goes by. Defo on 5. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate all the clicks we're getting on Twitter. Lubie says it's bordering on becoming a monster.
Twitter, the 5 Reasons tweets are really helping out a lot. We hope you do find us here on 5 Reasons Sports and check us out live on South Florida Live from 7 to 9 when you're done watching.
Right, and today we'll have the trivia challenge, so your chance to win something. And yes, you know my experience, and I'll never forget this. I was giving away a coupon for a frozen pie at a defunct supermarket. When I first moved to town, I found these coupons in the drawer, and I didn't realize the expiration date had long since passed, and that the supermarket that these were for was no longer in existence. And sure enough, a zillion people called. They all wanted to win the prize. And they were disappointed if they lost.
They're legit. You can use those.
Yeah, landlubbers, you'll be there tonight.
I'll be there.
Your own live version of the trivia challenge with the aforementioned professor, who I was kind of hoping would come on the show today. I don't know. Well, were we unable to connect with the professor?
Oh, I didn't. Yeah, he's supposed to come on.
All right.
He's supposed to either give me a picture, come on with us later. But yeah, check us out 7 to 9 live on South Florida Live.
$22 chicken tenders, and for that kind of money, they should have been a lot better.
Are you kidding?
But that's the way it is, right? I mean, we wouldn't have the tournament without Stephen Ross. So even if he steps in dog shit, the minute he walks out the door, that slide, when you realize that, oh, geez, this is not going to be pleasant. I'm going to have to take this off my shoe before I get in the car. Does somebody else come and wipe that off for him, Stephen Ross?
Probably, yes. I would think so.
There you go. There's our question of the day, your sports talk question of the day. Does Stephen Ross wipe his own shoe when he steps in dog shit? With that, we'll leave you on Defo on 5. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.